that we made it through another week here on this earth. And this is Attorney Clint in Paris, co-host of Straight Up the Middle. I have with me the other host of the show, Professor Tony Seabrook. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning. Clint, you say you're from Georgia?
No. I just said I am from Georgia. Let me say,
Okay.
hey, I
No,
got
no.
Georgia saying all in my toes.
Exactly. I'm like, man, this guy sounds like a Baptist pastor when he brings us in, Like, man, I don't know, the 8 minute,
Baptist,
you know.
Methodist, I've been every one of them. Seventh-day Adventist, Jehovah's Witness, you name it, I've been it. And took a class on modern Muslim theories.
Well, good morning, man. I'm telling you, I think I told you already. I'm sitting in this chair, but my back's hurting. All this stuff I'm trying to do to get in shape. And whenever they lift this corona restriction, I'm
Uh-huh.
trying to walk out with my shirt off. I want to walk
Okay, yeah.
but that's not
Yeah.
happening now.
Listen, man, you just got married. I'm going to tell you, I tell guys all the time, when you walk out the bathroom in your nightrobe, give your woman something to look at. You want to look at something, she should look at something too. And if you can't do that,
on this one.
But give us something to see when you come out. So absolutely, I encourage that. Black men in our health, we fight and struggle so much with just providing and filling the role of the man of the house. Sometimes we don't do what we should to take care of ourselves physically and mentally. So I commend you, brother, for getting out there and get some exercise. I think I was telling you when we took we were talking earlier that I tried to exercise and my body just it hurts if I lift weights, my joints and things. So I've taken up bike riding. I do some mountain bike riding, and
Really?
I do get a little bit of air. I got me a bike and little specialized bike, 29 inch, 1x12 with the Shimano shifters on it, extra wide tires, the point threes. And it's a nice bike, and I go out, and we don't know in Hillsborough County. We're in Hillsborough County for those listening around the world, and all over the country. This is a national show. We have two great parks here: Alafaya State Park here, and the Bon Voyage State Park. And there are people that travel from all over the place to come and ride those two parks because they're such good parks. 25 miles at one, I think, like 40 at the other. So but anyway, that's why I get out and ride my bike and get exercise and break a sweat and see animals. We've seen a bear, we've seen deer,
What?
we see all kinds of animals because you're so far out. Nature's reclaiming its space out in those areas though. So you got out and got some walking. Now you walk by yourself, you and your wife, or
Well, the first mile is always me walking my dog.
oh, okay.
Out here in the new construction, still don't have a privacy fence up, so I'm walking that guy as much as I
Uh-huh.
can. And so I have a 20-minute mile when I'm walking him. So I hurry and get him back to the house, and I try to get a 15-minute mile in, walking a bit fast. But yeah, I'm walking. So you see me stretching in the chair because my back is tight. But
Well, that's understandable.
yeah.
So anyway, so we recovered a little bit from the absorption with I think what was going to happen in Tulsa that has happened,
Mm-hmm.
and we've moved on from there. The fallout from that was what do we end up with? I think so far we've got 7 people who've tested positive. What that will lead to, 6 of those were Donald Trump staffers, including Secret Service, and then a reporter has also tested positive as well that covered that event. So that's just something, a little bit of a backdrop, but Donald Trump seems to be getting his legs on. He's getting back out there a little bit. What do you think his 2 performances so far? The one in Tulsa and the one in Phoenix.
Honestly, I didn't watch either of them. I always wait to the after effect. And
Wait a minute. Are you going with the Rush Limbaugh model? Don't worry about watching. I'll tell you what you should have saw. Just wait for me to tell you what you should.
well, I'd rather say it. I just look for the cliff notes. It,
Okay.
it's always been hard. It's hard for me to listen and watch a Donald Trump rally. It's going to be the same thing. It's not so much rehearsed. It's he's more tangential than I am. I'm like, geez, what is he talking about?
We call that undisciplined. That's what that's called. It's called being undisciplined. undisciplined.
Right.
I
So
thought he did. He hit the same things he's done before.
yeah,
Uh,
the economy is going to come back.
in theory, not even subject matter, but a lot of hyperbole, exaggeration, and ridicule, and uh, try to create fear. Those are my check boxes that I'm listening for. Is he over exaggerating? Nothing. Yes, he is. Is he using hyperbole when he could have just said what he needed to say? It's yeah, everything is bigly. He did that. Does he check the box of fear? But here's what I watch with Donald Trump, because I think Donald Trump is mentally ill. I watch for the people who I think are sane. I'm really watching the crowd behind him.
Uh-huh.
I watch those people and I try to think, who is that and why did they position that person behind Donald Trump? Because all those people are positioned specifically for certain reasons. And then who has a sign? It's a little bit choreographed. I look at some of that.
Right.
The other people who I think are sane people, I watch to see how they handle things, because they're the ones really that I'm looking to hold accountable. Donald Trump is exactly what I expect him to be. It's his enablers that are going to rule the day, I think, of having hitched their wagons to this guy, because it's all about him. So I watch for those kinds of things. And I thought people seemed a little like, God, this is the same skit. They seemed a little unenthused. And it may have been because he couldn't put the crowd in that room in Oklahoma like he wanted. And
Mm-hmm.
so you lose something at a concert where it's only half full. You lose the energy of the other people. And I think that's scary, because I think his campaign is mainly energy. He depends on that energy
Right.
in his faithful followers, because the logic doesn't hold up. So you got two groups. You got his faithful followers that just follow him. And you got the other folks who are robbing the country, I think, blind while he's in office. And the two of them they're just trying to do their thing. So that's kind of what I took from that. But what I think is kind of another thing that was interesting is, twice in the last couple of weeks I've heard Bob Johnson talking about Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And I thought Bob abandoned the black community when Obama got elected, because he was so upset about Hillary not winning, and he just didn't think Obama was. But suddenly now he is front and center, giving opinions every other day about stuff. And one thing he talked about was Black Lives Matter. And it was interesting in the discussion. I was trying to figure out, was he talking about a movement, a philosophy, or an organization? Or is it all, what is Black Lives? What is Black Lives? Because in my city, they're painting a street today. And here in Tampa, there's a street being painted Black Lives Matter. I went to a march this week with the judicial system, and we had all the local bar association, the black lawyers, Hispanic age. Oh, we all got out there. I don't know whose idea this was, in the middle of the day during a weekday, and walk around downtown, walk around the courthouse. It was hot, man. It was so hot. But I put on my jacket. I was dressed like a lawyer.
Uh-huh.
As we walked around, I kept saying, man, it's mighty hot out here. And I had a pocket full of rocks. I had my rocks with me. And I said, if something break out, at least I got a few rocks. I can start, I can start throwing these rocks at something. But it was a very, very polite and organized march, Professor. We stayed on the sidewalk. We obeyed all the traffic rules. We walked inside the crosswalk.
I hope you did. You were a group of law professionals.
The federal judges came out at the courthouse and waved to us as we went walking by, politely. You had a sign that says quiet court in session.
Uh-huh.
So you had to be quiet to walk by there.
That's interesting.
But we did it. Here's the two chants that were made the whole time. Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
And no justice, no peace. And it was quite interesting to see the number of non-black lawyers who walks chanting that chant. We did a 1.7-mile walk around both of the big courthouse, from one courthouse to the other courthouse. We had the usual speeches and stuff done by, whoever thought they were somebody, but I thought it was interesting. But in the midst of that, I kept thinking, I want these people to know who and what is Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. What is them saying it? What does it mean? What are your thoughts about what Black Lives Matter is?
You know, it's interesting you say that because I talk all the time, and I don't know about your wife, but I always have to preface it with my wife is listen to your husband now. I was going to listen to your husband now, but you know, and she always responds, you know, I always that's all I do is listen to you. What I said to her early in the week is, first of all, where's the church? Where's the church in this? But I don't want to touch on that just yet. But as far as
Mm,
Black Lives Matter, I actually said to someone, I don't use Black Lives Matters. I don't use that when we're talking about a movement. I'm using it in how I think the layperson uses it. We're talking about Black lives. We're talking about the concept of Black Lives Matter. And the reason why that's important is I haven't dedicated much time, and I can't find those notes, but Black Lives Matters as a organization, a foundation, um, historically, and if my brief research is correct, by three female self-proclaimed Marxists. And as a national or global, I don't think it's global, as a national organization, they receive funding. Now, from my understanding, 71% of that money is going to the foundation, not to the local Black Lives Matters that I think the average person thinks of, the average Black person thinks of as a concept. So, especially post George Floyd, I'm going to always use that because to me, that's what gave us the bounce. That's what put this in a place that makes this different from day one. So, the protest, the march, all the sentiment behind it is way different. So, anyway, so there's a difference. And I believe it's key. And so my question, what I said to my wife was, I wonder if the movement has been hijacked already and we just don't know about it. Remember last week, my thing was just awareness. We have to be aware that we've been here before and that our movement has been hijacked or can be hijacked. So what I mean by being hijacked, if Black Lives Matter, if those three self-proclaimed Marxists, if they have a bigger agenda and we're doing the footwork, they are enabling us, and we think we're getting ahead because things have changed. I heard the Hawk Newsman, I think is his name, but the president of the, I don't know if it's a local one. He's supposed to be president of the Black Lives Matter chapter. Let's say it's up in DC. I'm not sure what his position is, but I heard his interview yesterday and with Laura McCallum. And at first I thought, okay, he's going to come across angry because he looked angry, right? Now I'm just
okay.
making an observation. But he gave probably the most, a very pithy definition and explanation as to why Black Lives Matter as a movement is serious. And he told her, you look at us and you're using words, you're taking words out of context. As I said, we can burn it down. You don't give us what we want, we're going to burn it down. Well, he said I could have been figuratively, I could have been talking literally, but you have to look back. And he gave a bit of a history example. The history of this country is built on taking stuff. We go in, we replace governments in other countries that we don't like, and we put another government in place. So it's all built on taking something. It's built on aggression. This company, I mean, this country has done that. So with that, the difference is, I think African Americans, and I'm going to use the term lay people, let's say here in Tampa, I think they're looking at the concept of Black Lives Matter, what we've seen and how we feel. Black Lives Matter as an organization, I think, has a different agenda. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm almost certain it's not the same. They are Marxists. That means they're not looking out for what we're looking out for. That'd be a different world for us to live in if they got what they want, if what they want. So I think we have to be careful. And before I kick it back to you, and I think it's important that we do use the 60s as a benchmark, if you will, because if we just look at Martin Luther King, and that was another thing that this guy said in his interview, because she was trying to say, well, hey, look, you quote Martin Luther King a lot, and most people know he was a peaceful guy. And he took it one step further. He said, my Lord Savior Jesus Christ was the most radical I forget what term he used, and he went on to say why he was that because he was African American. When he was a black man, talked about his hair, his feet,
Uh-huh.
and his skin tone, and we left it at that. But I think the church has to now come in, so this movement is not hijacked like it has the potential. The church, the black church, let's just be specific here. The black church has to come in and have a presence in this march. When we talk about the economics behind it, that has to take this further. But I think the black church, and we talk about mega churches, we talk about TV evangelists, there's enough money from just that entity to get us to the next level. So that's where I think it is. There's a difference, but if you're not careful, people use those terms interchangeably, or they just assume you mean the organization, the foundation, and then you're talking about the founding elements of it.
Well, before I respond to some of those things, I want to just say to people that are listening to us on Intex News Radio that you can also watch us on the Intex News YouTube page, and you can also call in just straight up the middle. We're using the Zoom technology specific for our show, straight up the middle. You call in, the number is 972 3287 5280, and you dial into that number and you'll be put into a waiting room, and then we'll bring you in live onto the show, and you can share your comments with the rest of the listeners. So you said a lot in that, Professor, that I'd like to kind of unpack a little bit. um, I always thought the civil rights movement fizzled out when it became diversified, when other people got involved and said, we're going to help too, we'll help you organize.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly it expanded into general grievances against humanity.
Right.
It began to broaden, and it lost its focus. It was much easier to deal with the issues of oppression and injustice as it relates to African Americans. But once that morphed into equal pay for equal work for everybody,
right,
it got kind of muddy. And slowly you saw the civil rights movement kind of, it became like water going down a hill. Initially you have a tight little stream, but slowly the water spreads out and it comes to a stop.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of was what I thought. And I see in this situation, we talk about the benefit of the diversity. You have to also identify the difficulty of the diversity. And I thought about that when I went to the event here locally during the week with the legal system. And my first response to the leader of the Bar Association was, what are our demands?
Right.
Because we need to have a list to say, we're marching for these. Here's what we want you to do. Here's who we're asking to do these things. And, that didn't get too far, because they said, well, you got the chief judge sitting there. Can't say too much to him. I said, yeah, you actually can say something to him. And I said to them, I said, look, I'm not doing this event. You can't let everybody speak and make it sound like they're part of the solution. Because once you let people believe and feel they're part of the solution, they no longer identify themselves as part of the problem. And so,
right, good point.
Right, so there's no drive to change because I'm already with you.
Right.
My change, so just interesting how that plays itself out. And when I look at Black Lives Matter, that's some of my thing. Now, I like the philosophy of it, and I love, I think the general population of America and the world is embracing this idea that Black lives matter. And that the retort to that, and it's going to be a minute or two when that stops being the case. But people right now are reflecting on, what? I'm just going to say it. Black folks haven't got a fair shake. Even in spite of that, you've done well. You under the circumstances, the triumph of the black experience in America is one of triumph. But it hadn't been a fair shake, and you still done well. It's kind of like, you have that one, team in the league whose gym doesn't have AC, and they have to, they have to find their own sneakers, and they don't have good basketballs to practice with, and they may have to catch a ride to the game. They don't have all the other things to compete with the other teams, but they still compete and do well.
Right.
And so everybody understands that they're competing with disadvantages. That's to me what Black Lives Matter. That's really when I hear that, I'm hoping that I worry about any organization because I am an organization guy. I've been in you name organization, and the two things that corrupt every organization that I've been a part of: power and money. Those two things are always the things that become very big issues. But let me drive back to one more issue, and I think we need to open this up a little bit and get your comments. I'd love for people listening in if you'd like to chime in. Again, the phone number to call our show is 972 3287 5280. That's straight up the middle. We'll bring you in through Zoom. But I want to ask you this question, Professor. You mentioned the church. I thought the church's role in our society was salvation. Why is it you feel that the church has a role in this situation as it relates to race relations in America? And when you say church, are you just talking about the black church? Are you talking about the Catholic and other religious organizations as it pertains to their involvement in this?
Well, I was speaking about the black church to be specific, but not to exclude any other church. I'm saying the white church, and that sounds like a segregated church.
Start talking about race, like Clarence Thomas says. You got once you start talking about race, you got to keep talking about race.
This is true, but the reason why, and it goes back to what you just said, we have to, we as in the black community and the black church, have to be united. And the church is not just about salvation; it's about justice too. I mean, Christ is a just God. I mean, our God is one of justice. So you can't just say, well, we're just going to pray about it. And that's what rubs people the wrong way whenever there's a disaster. And then it seems like the unifying message that comes from the church, and that's in quotes, is we're going to pray for them. And then people go, I don't want to do any more praying. So we're seeing feet and hands go with this praying. Well, we don't even see much praying. We don't even hear that much anymore, but we're seeing a lot of action. The feet and hands are the protesters and the people willing to get aggressive and physical. So I think the church, the black church, this is an opportunity for them. The downside to that is a lot of the churches are dependent upon their 501c3 status. So that's the number one thing that most of the big churches are concerned about. If I start to have this conversation, it's going to make people uncomfortable. If they start messing with our funding into the church, because where we're placed, a lot of churches, what's in the black neighborhood, churches, liquor stores, and community centers.
Pawn shops, cash advance.
Exactly. But it's just the church, I think, is just taking a black eye. We're seeing a lot going on. We're hearing a lot, but I'm not hearing. It's not that my church is not doing anything. I mean, we do a lot of things, virtually. So they're keeping up with the congregation, and their services are done online, that kind of stuff. But I don't see where there's a national presence. I don't see where there's a leader from the church. And again, I'm talking about the black church. I just don't see where they're leading here.
Let me ask you this. So from a religious aspect, I would think the most prominent religious leader in the African American community is Reverend Al Sharpton, who I have seen. I'm just saying, no. You say stop it. I'm telling you what I see though. He's a preacher. He's in the religious community, and he takes up these issues, and whatever risk come with it, he gets out front. Now you're saying you want somebody else to go with that?
Well, unfortunately, Al Sharpton and even Jesse Jackson, those two names in itself is like saying Donald Trump to some people, and they're divisive, and they've been here. I mean, people they don't have a new playbook. You can even look at Al Sharpton's attire. He don't have a new playbook. I mean, do something different.
Let me ask you this, though. Martin Luther King wasn't assassinated because people liked him. He was assassinated because people didn't like him.
But this is true.
So the fact that people don't like him, he's divisive and visceral, it makes a discomfort. Hey, well, I'd say we need 10 more. But I'm saying to me, you want more of him or you want something else? Because I see him as a religious leader. And
Well,
I for sure told you I was gonna shut that door for you. But you went in there. I was just sitting here. You went in there.
well, I really paused because I know he's a reverend.
He just did the
Not saying
eulogy. He did George Brown's eulogy. He did the sermon.
Yeah, but he only shows up, and to me, I'm just gonna say he's an opportunist. He shows up only in those times, and he's just not what I would see. I don't see him as a leader in the religious circles. He's a pastor and a reverend of his church and of whatever small group that looks to him. But other than that, when something like this happens, yeah, you can always hear from Al Sharpton and you know, be that what it is. But he does not galvanize the black church. He's not. You may consider him to be a leader. I just don't have words. But
so let's define. I'm trying to figure out what leader means. Does leader mean other black preachers will go along with him? Does it mean people in the black community will go along? I'm trying to figure out what does, in your mind, this church leadership. What does it what does it look like? And and that's what I'm trying to, because I agree with you. We've missed the leadership of the black church, but that's because we were conditioned to expect it.
Well, let me go back to what I said last week. African Americans historically have been the most churched block of people. We felt that persecution. There is a direct tie between why we feel the way we are and the life and example of Christ. I mean, yes. We've always had that reminder. But the other thing about the black church, and historically, is how pastors preach to the pews, if you will. So, there's an interesting chapter in that book, Miseducation of the Negro, where Dr. Woodson talks about how the church misses the mark.
I'm going to go look that up when I get finished. So
yeah.
That quote up.
They speak to I don't say they preach down, but anyway, they just preach to the pews. They're not really preaching a message of empowerment. It seems like it's the old message. Black church, I'm talking about. But now, if I had to put that in the context of this social media world, and yeah, the church has now come along using the same technologies, but I think has rendered them powerless in a lot of ways.
As it pertains, I think, and I see we're coming up on a break in a few minutes. We'll take that. We're conditioned to expect political and social action from the church. And I don't know that the modern church, the current black church in urban developed communities, is equipped, because we get so much other information. We look to so many. See, during the civil rights movement, you didn't have elected black leadership to go to. You didn't have large black businesses that were not dependent on the greater white community. Mm-hmm. The one voice that seemed to have its own ability to say what it needed to say in the situation was the black church. And the visual created from the national movement of Martin Luther King and Abernathy and some of these other folks kind of created that messaging. But in reality, most black preachers stuck to just preaching the gospel. They didn't hit the streets. There's this perception, I'm going to finish this up because I know she read it, a revisionist history professor of all black folks out in the streets marching for civil rights and change. A lot of people were not there. They were not in, and they were pissed by these troublemakers coming in their town. Let y'all think on that for a little bit. They weren't happy about that. But as it is what we have. So again, we're going to take a quick break. Before we go, call-in number, 972-3287. 5280. That is a call-in number to be a part of what we're talking about. We're going to take a quick break, going to pay some bills. When we come back, okay, I'm going to take a shot at Bob Johnson. Just a little smicket. And what about these polls?
Yeah.
People where I don't know if Donald, if Biden should go ahead and give his thank you speech right now or not. We'll talk about that a little bit. What's happening with the election? You're listening to Straight Up the Middle on Intex News Radio, reality radio, where everybody can be a star. We're gonna take a break, and we will be right back.
We're muting out.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan.
Separated.
We were able to get in touch with each other in no time.
Idea how to find each other.
The whole experience was
the
fine.
most frightening 10 hours of my life.
If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay calm and keep to the plan.
Message.
Some parents plan ahead, some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard, so you don't need to start foraging wild berries.
I was skeptical, but these are actually pretty good.
You don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
All right. Okay, we're back live on Intex News Radio, reality radio, everybody can be a star. Okay. First of all, remember, I am a lawyer by trade. The professor is an educator. We're not technology people. So I've gotten my call-in numbers all skewed around. The correct number is 929-205-6099. That is a Zoom number specific to Straight Up the Middle. 929-205-6099. And if you call in, we're going to see if we can get that put up on the board. You can call in and talk to us about it. And listen, I know people oftentimes write me emails and say, well, you weren't talking about this on the show, and I was going to call and tell you X. Well, feel free to call in and tell us X. We are okay talking out the issue that is important to you. As I sit here today, Professor, in the Oval Office, just thinking about the awesome power of being here, it's overwhelming. And that may have been what has happened to poor Bob Johnson, because he seems to be at it. He seems to be trying to create just, I don't know, a stir in the Democratic Party for some reason. And I was trying to figure out, well, what relevance is Bob? Where's he been? I mean, what is he doing now? Such that he now gets to be quoted 3-4 times a week and have interviews. But then again, I am listening to Fox, so maybe that's why they're bringing him on, and then maybe they feel good about what they're hearing. But I just thought it was surprising to hear Bob Johnson now demanding reparations, calling for a third party to seize the momentum from the movement.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts when you heard Bob Johnson suddenly emerge on the scene again?
Well, to be fair, the last I heard Bob Johnson, he was always a proponent of reparations. So I don't think he's changed his position. But Bob Johnson did the same thing that, what is it, Kathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A. They made the craziest statements that I think in their mind, this means something, and this is what we need to do, or this might be somehow innovative and transforming. Because Mr. Cathy said whites need to shine blacks' shoes to show some type of repentance. And that wasn't his direct thing, but basically, you need to go and find a black person and shine their shoes. I mean, it's the craziest thing. It's not as ludicrous as what Bob Johnson is saying, but it's still saying that blacks need to form their own Black Lives Matter. And I think he used a term, but he wasn't saying the party should be called Black Lives Matter, but form their own party. And then I think under his plan, everyone gets like $386,000 for his reparation plan. So it just seems like, okay, I got some money. Let me say something that people hadn't thought about. It's like
I got the saying. So I'm trying to figure out why put a mic in his face. My first thought is, who's listening to Bob Johnson?
Exactly.
That's what my thought was. But it's like, well, he should have some clout. But anyway, enough of that. Enough sidetrack. Okay, so let's drill down to what I know has been heavy on your mind, and that's what's going on with the election. I can't turn on the TV without somebody telling me how far behind Donald Trump is and how far ahead Joe Biden is. How all the battleground states are in favor of Joe Biden and they're all against Donald Trump.
Right.
And I'm sitting there going, okay, so can somebody explain why I can believe polls this time that were so dead wrong last time, except the ones on Fox?
Well, now here, I'm glad you said that, because I tend to forget, because you're right. Fox is who's bringing Bob Johnson up, and they're trying to create a distraction.
I don't know. I'm just saying they're selling TV space. They're whatever they can put on, Father Knows Best to Bob Johnson, whatever get audience.
Okay, now let's look at those polls. So I have an interesting snapshot.
Okay.
Here. And here are the polls from 2016. Hillary Clinton now, this is like breaking news, now 49%, Donald Trump 39%, 2016. 2020, Joe 50%, and Donald Trump's at 38%. Does that not tell you? And since 2016, Fox News is not what it used to be. They've lost a number of conservatives, and is Joy on that show? They have a number of people on that show. I think that's the lady who gave Donna somebody, Brazil. I think she's on Fox now. So it's not what it used to be. So now
Harold Ford is on there as well.
Okay. So, and this was a Fox News poll. So one would think, man, even Fox now has turned on Trump or now reporting fairly and squarely. But if you're paying attention, Fox has brought on some liberal people since 2016. So the reporting is going to be different.
Well, let's stay for a minute, though. But you saw the news clip when Obama won. Mm-hmm. And Karl Rove refused to accept the pollsters' numbers and projections. And they went down to the pollsters. They went to the back room to the pollsters and showed the people crunching the numbers. I don't see but Donna Brazil and Harold Ford and Shalea, whoever the other supposed liberals on the show are in that back room putting the numbers together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that. And I don't know how it's. Yeah. So for me, that piece, the on-air personalities are really the tip of the iceberg. They're just the top you see. The real structure of Fox is behind the scenes. And what you would be admitting to me is that politics is influencing what Fox News presents.
Well, it's always the case. I mean, MSNBC, let's just take that CNN. You can just put those, so you can just juxtapose CNN and Fox.
Not the news is one thing.
The back end.
Yeah, right. But the entertainment, right? When I see Cuomo and Some of those people, those are personality commentators. They're selling their entertainment. The news side is supposed that's really, I think that the argument that's always been creeping around here is the news side is supposed to still be the news, and that's the problem now. I think with all of these shows is no longer is the news the news. They everything is opinion.
Well, how
And
about look at it this way? I just think it's been more exploited, and the news as an entity, all of them, it's shown Donald Trump has brought out the worst in the news outlet, in the news media outlets.
you think? Now, what do you say about
Certainly.
that? What do you mean by that?
That's why we're saying, that's why you're saying things like now things have changed. No, the reason why things have changed because we have a Donald J. Trump president that he rubs a lot of people wrong. They'd rather see, so it is political, and they're showing their political bias almost every night. They don't run certain segments on the liberal side of the house. Fox still maintains some type of balance, and may run things on both sides of the house. They don't give a lot of airtime to liberal things, but still, they're doing more now since they did since the change up and the new personalities. But still, you can divide it up and say, no, you're talking about a personality. I'm talking about the ownership and the back end. But it's the same thing because the ownership wouldn't have brought that personality on, and that personality won't have the prime time segments that they have if it's not one and the same. So it has to be along the same vein. They want to push the same narrative. But again, this was a Fox poll, 2016 and 2020. The same spread. If no one sees that as ironic, I just think that person is on the left side. You don't have to say it's wrong, but you can't say that. Oh well, no, that's just what the polls are.
Well, the polls, and I don't want to get too far down into weeds. And if you're listening to us online or the call-in number should be up on the screen. Give us a call at 929-205-6099. Tony, let me talk about the polls. The first question I have when I see the polls are, can I believe the polls? What will make me believe the polls? And I think the poll that I expect to be the most skewed in favor of Donald Trump is Fox, if it can, because Fox viewers don't want to see a poll saying Donald Trump is behind. So that's my first thought. The second one is sometimes I like to listen to see if I can read the little script at the bottom, and they'll say this poll is based on registered voters, likely voters,
right,
adults over the age of 18.
Right.
So sometimes I'll try to take a look, see, and a good poll to me is a poll that has a equal number of Democrats and Republicans reflective of the likely electorate. I don't care about people over 18. I don't care about registered voters. I care about likely voters, and likely voters are those folks I think they voted in at least two of the last election cycles. But so that's one of the things I'm looking at when I hear a poll. Who are these people? The other one is this. I've been alive a long time. I've never been polled for anything.
Me either.
TVs. So the next question is, are you just maybe missing a large segment of the population that may support Donald Trump? You're not just missing them, or they won't tell you what they'll do because they're afraid of, whatever. But those polls are anonymous and whatnot. But so are you putting any stock in the polling numbers as it is now?
No. And that was solidified from the 2016 election.
I think the polling has a credibility issue. Huge credibility issue. One, I see it too much. I don't need something happening on Tuesday and Thursday. Oh, we got a poll. I'm like, what do y'all? What are these people in a basement somewhere? You just like run in there and ask them. So, and have they had time to absorb what they even saw? And by the time the poll comes out, we've got more facts that we didn't have before the situation. But what is the influence on the election, you think? Do you think the polls influenced Donald Trump going to Tulsa, going out to Arizona to try to do this wall event?
Yeah.
That both of those seem to be big duds. But is that the result of the polling?
I would say the polling has to play a part in it. I mean, the people around him, his campaign has to be informing him of what's going on. But then let's also be clear: Donald Trump also was bucking the system from 2016 because he was like, the polls are wrong. The polls are wrong. My people are telling me this, and that's what rubbed people the wrong way. People thought he was delusional because he would go, "Well, my people are telling me this," and even now because. I'm not clairvoyant. Before I was looking at the same polls, dude, you got like a 10% chance. That's what they were giving him. And he's like, well, my people are telling me this, blah, blah, blah. And it seemed delusional. But then post 2016, you go, he was right. So you can't say that, okay, I think the polls might be why he's doing it. He probably has the same mechanism in place. And remember, Donald Trump hardly trusts anybody. So I think that translates to, well, he's such a narcissist. He's going to only deal with people that tell him he's great. His hair looks good and, nicely and beautiful.
Oh, no. It's people who say he's a perfect person now.
Oh, Jesus.
That's his new one. People tell me I'm a perfect person.
Right. But I still think his delivery, okay, let's just say it's not well at all. But I think his campaign, I would say his campaign has the same outlook that it had in 2016. I think he's going to bring the same people in that has his best interests at heart. And as soon as they show any other type of thought process, he gets rid of them. It's not favorable to him. He gets rid of them. We know that, and that's not good.
One
of the things, asking me about the poll, and I think he's looking at the same thing and he's addressing what he can, but I think he's going on the same type of polling that he did in 2016, which would make sense. They lied about me in 2016. Why am I going to think?
Well, hold on. See, here's something I've had issue with Republicans. If somebody's wrong, it's a lie.
No, I'm talking about the polling.
I mean, the polling wasn't a lie. It was just wrong.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
It was just wrong.
I can't do anything, and make sure I get this right. You can't do something as a person, as a human being. You cannot carry out an action that you hadn't at some point previously thought about. Does that make sense? Would you agree with that? I can't do something that at some point in my life prior to that moment that I hadn't thought about.
Unless it's a reaction to an external stimulus that is presented to you in a certain moment. That's the issue.
One exception.
Right. Yeah.
So polling is not done. People like to think, oh, it's just a machine that does it. Well, someone has to provide that data.
But it's a science, though. The science says go talk to 15 people. 1,500 people.
But science didn't tell you which people to talk to. So if I'm cherry picking,
you cherry pick and that's what I talked about. The cherry picking, in that there's a science in there that says go talk to 1,500 people, and of those people, 43% should be Republican, and 46% should be Democrat.
Right.
And then the remainder should be independents.
Okay.
Right. Now we've got our universe of that's the body, and now we go forward. That's kind of what the science is. The problem with them is figuring out who are we missing, and how do we calculate what they might do in this. The whole silent majority that Jerry Falwell talked about, that won't talk to you, will never see them, you never notice them, but they're there, and you feel their impact by the thing, how they live and what they do, and so on. So I don't know if it's a lie that the numbers came out wrong. I thought that it was something they needed to learn about, making the polling more accurate. It's like hurricane predictions.
Hurricane.
Right after since Andrew, now we will accept the European weather maps, because we got it so wrong, to help us get it better and right.
Even with that analogy, you also would have to agree, hopefully, that even meteorologists and news outlets, they make it so dramatic because they're trying to drive behavior. But we need to make sure they understand.
Are they just trying? But the behavior to me, from when I see TV, is TV. They just want my eyeball stuck on it, and whatever it needs to give me to keep my eyeball stuck there, they're going to keep me. They're going to say all show breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, and then they're gonna live to the last minute and go, okay, breaking news. We'll cover that in the next section. But they're just trying to keep eyeballs on the show. I don't know if they're trying to, breaking news, make me go to Home Depot and buy wood.
Oh,
Get ready.
Well, if they start harping between what happened with Hurricane Charlie versus what happened with another hurricane, and they show all the spaghetti models, and then they show you where these spaghetti models come from.
Right.
Like everything else, these are trained people. Now, what we can't predict is Mother Nature. Right. So there's always going to be an X factor that one can't account for, but they have to do their best to account for that unknown. But that's what they're trained for. And I think it just be very, I don't want to say naive. I just think it's very misleading to say, well, they do everything they need to do. It's just what the system produces, because that can't be correct. If I give you a template, it's what you put in the template. And why you put that in the template? But
there's some people in there in that box who are doing these calculations. They're dry, and their existence depends on getting it right. And they could care less on the second part of that piece. That's what happened. I'll give you that. And I think about, and the moment for me was
still around like you.
The moment for me was when Carl Rove rejected the posters at Fox, and the man just said, "That's not what the numbers show." Here in Ohio, when these votes in Cleveland come in, our numbers say 90% of those people are going for Obama. Right. And that's nothing we can do. That's the science of it. I believe those people still exist. Now there may be no other people at different levels that start to massage that. So even with the polling, one of the things you may notice is a dispersion of polling. So you have so many new people polling now to create this unofficial polling spaghetti model. And what's coming down is, even now, if you look on you go look up the polling, they'll show you 5 or 6 polls together, done by independent groups, whatever their driving motivation is, and law. But let me ask you this: we did enough about Trump. How do you think the polls are affecting Biden? Is that why you think Biden is saying, "Hey, look, this guy's losing it on his own. I'll just let that play out for right now and rest up"?
Again, if one were to take this laying down to see the poll, and I'm going to say, when I see these polls that show Biden, that's for, like you said, Trump's base. That's for the Democratic base, not so much Biden's base, because I don't think Biden has a true base other than what he says of black people.
But you think that when Fox puts out a poll that shows Biden is in the lead, that's for Biden's base?
I think that's for Biden's base. Now, here's why I say it, because I don't believe the polling. I just don't believe the polling, especially given what's happened. And Fox was wrong too in 2016.
Twice.
So just because Fox put a poll up in 2020.
Yeah, they said Romney was going to beat Obama, and Right.
But Biden is only polling well because he's absent. It's a vote against Trump. It's not a vote necessarily for Biden. And I think the Democrats would rather this pandemic keep people at a distance, keep Biden muffled in some way, and keep him out of the public eye. Most of the time, he fares well because he has the same problem Trump has. He's gaffe prone.
But people don't care about the gaffes. They don't care.
No, they have to, because I always hear people talk about what Trump said.
If they can't, they talk about it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't determine voting, though.
Well, people don't like you based on stuff you do and how you do it, because that's what rubs people the wrong way. It's not so much how Trump, it's what he says and how he says.
Here's what I think is the issue with what Trump says. We only got a few more minutes left, right, Professor. It shows what kind of person he is, and people don't like the person. We've just been getting to know Donald Trump. We really didn't know Donald Trump. So people are like, that's not the guy that I thought I knew. Is it? This callous? This indifferent? This cynical and narcissistic? New
York. I don't know. I know a lot of people from New York. They talk the same way.
Yeah, I'm just talking about this one. This guy here, and the things that have come out about him. I think he's so unlikable.
Okay.
And the things he says reaffirms. For example, in the middle of a pandemic, and we'll get this next week, you try to get rid of people's health care in the middle of a pandemic?
Well, I think that's kind of
politics.
There needs to be context to that statement, because the way you said it and the way people will hear what you said without context is, man, this guy got sick and Donald Trump said, no, he has no insurance. We're taking his insurance.
His administration is trying to end what's left of Obamacare. It has no upside to his administration.
But
has no budget. Go ahead.
The effort has always been underway to.
I know that, but right now we're in a critical situation where people need health care confidence. That's the word I'll use. They need to be confidence. I can get to medical care if I need it. If he wipes out Obamacare, these people are they got to go figure out where their coverage comes from.
Not really, no, because there's no hospital, especially no community hospital, that would turn someone away. So this whole thing that,
time out. Watch me now, and this is an issue. And think about this. Emergency hospital care is not a health plan. That's not where you want to see people.
But this is true. But I don't abandon something that's already been in play because now there's a pandemic. But once again, I say the Democrats would rather make it you think that Trump is, look, this is all Trump's fault. Matter of fact,
all I can say, I put them aside. Let's just deal with the fact, and I see we're getting the whole whoa sign, so we're going to pick this up next week, Professor. Yeah. I think this is a bad play for him going after healthcare. It's just too easy for people like me to say, see what a bad guy he is, how callous and discompassionate. And I don't know where the compassion in this is, what the benefit is. The budget is out the window. The deficit is through the sky. What is the personal benefit to people to end their health care right now? I hate to do it to you. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Go ahead, Professor, and we got to get out.
Well, I tell you what, that you're right. He needs to do a better job, or his campaign needs to do a better job at communicating why he has that position and not let people like the Democrats and you just make that statement. But before I go,
saying it every time
the professor promotes How We Fight. So you go online and you look for the hashtag How We Fight, join the movement.
Okay, we're going to get out of here real quick. Shout out. My mother's youngest brother passed away this week.
Wow.
Tommy Dunn up in Gainesville, Georgia. Want to give a shout out to the Dunn family. We're holding and praying for you all. So listen, everybody, appreciate you tuning in. Professors, always love the spirit of debate. I'm going to let you stew on that a little bit. You come back with a little meat on the bone.
Coming back. I'm going to find out what you're talking about.
We'll talk about that next week. You've been listening to Straight Up the Middle on Intex News Radio, reality radio. Everybody could be a star. We'll see you back here next week. Bye-bye.